Hey guys, Sean here. Welcome to the F1 Word and to some interesting stuff regarding quali engine modes. So I'll go over the news briefly, but I will pop a link in the description to an article that goes into a lot more detail than I will. And then a little bit later in the video, I'll give a few of my thoughts on it all. Now, ahead of the Spanish Grand Prix, it was revealed that teams have been informed that the FIA are set to bring in some new restrictions on the engine modes used by teams in qualifying, and that's from the Belgian Grand Prix onwards. In a letter sent out to all the teams earlier this week, the FIA Secretary General referenced the modes and indicated that the plan was for teams to run the same modes during both qualifying and the race, and this will all be covered with a new technical directive. As you would expect, there are a couple of reasons behind the changes. Firstly, with the power units becoming more and more complicated, there is a concern from the FIA that they are finding it or are going to find it increasingly difficult to ensure that the units are being used in compliance with the power unit regulations. And secondly, the governing body feels that the way some teams are running their different modes could actually mean that they violate the sporting regulation that states the driver must drive the car alone and unaided. So as already touched on, it looks like this change will come into force following the Spanish Grand Prix, but who will it impact the most? Well, Mercedes are expected to take the biggest hit as rival teams continue to raise questions about their qualifying pace. As an example, Christian Horner believed that Mercedes were about 4/10 clear of Red Bull on race pace, but somehow ended up a full second clear in qualifying at Silverstone. And Helmut Marko stated during an interview with RTL that the Mercedes party mode could be worth up to a second in quali. Of course, after arriving in Spain, Lewis Hamilton was asked about this and whether or not the ban would hit Mercedes harder than other teams, to which he replied, "No, the guys at our team have just done such a good job with the engine. It is obviously to slow us down, but I don't think it's going to get the result that they want. But that is totally fine if they do it." And the Brits teammate Valtteri Bottas backed that up by adding that the team are not panicking about the regulation change. Of course, if the ban does, as expected, come into force, it won't just affect the Works team, with both Racing Point and Williams also losing out on the modes. And George Russell actually said that he would be disappointed to see the modes banned, adding that it allows the driver to extract a little bit more from the car and makes it the most exciting part of the weekend. Meanwhile, though, down at Ferrari, Charles Leclerc feels that the ban would be a positive for his team, and actually revealed at the same time that the Scuderia do not have any extra modes available, and so are running pretty much the same through qualifying and the race. I will read you his quote here. He said, "To be honest, I don't think it will affect us so much, so I think it can only be positive for us. How much it will be beneficial, it's still to see, but for us, I can say that we don't have anything different from quali to the race, so for us, I don't think it will change anything." So, a mixed reaction from drivers regarding the news, and as you might expect, it seems quite a divisive topic in general. Not so much over the ban itself, but more around whether or not it's actually going to make all that much of a difference on a Saturday, and even the unintended negative impact it may have on a Sunday. That's certainly my concern. More on that later. Let's start with that first part though. Will banning party modes really make that much of a difference during qualifying? Well, on paper you'd be tempted to say yes, because Mercedes do appear to have the strongest extra power mode on the grid. Let's not forget they have taken pole position comfortably at every race so far in 2020. And so banning it could see them take quite a big hit, with other teams closing that gap by some margin. However, let's be honest about this, it is highly unlikely that we're going to see their one-lap pace advantage vanish overnight. As Lewis Hamilton alluded to, the team have done a great job with the power unit, and so they will likely still have a decent advantage over their rivals. I suppose it's a little bit like DAS for me. I don't believe there is one thing making that Mercedes so much better than every other car, and so banning the engine modes will probably see them lose part of their advantage, but I would be very surprised if they suddenly found themselves locking out the second row rather than the front row. For me though, the biggest concern is the unintended consequences that this could throw up for the race. So quali modes aren't just used in qualifying, as I'm sure many of you already know. It is commonplace during races to use those extra modes to give your driver a boost in power so that they can attack other cars and try to get some overtaking done, but also to help defend when a quicker, perhaps more powerful car is trying to get by. It adds a little bit to the battling we see, a strategic element. A little bit like, although very different in the way it all works, it's a bit like the days of the driver deployed KERS. Use that extra power where you want to when it's available, but when it's gone, tough luck. In a sport where overtaking is already very difficult, banning something that at least helps to make it more of a possibility could be massively detrimental to the racing we enjoy on a Sunday. But it's not just about overtaking on the track. Those extra power modes are massively helpful for drivers when they want to undercut or overcut their rival during the pit stops. Extra power on their in and out lap is often key to their strategies, but also think back to Austria. That final lap from Lando Norris, the tension watching his sector times, seeing that gap to Hamilton come down corner after corner, and the elation from the majority of the fan base when he grabbed that shock podium with just a couple of corners to spare. That was incredible, and the now well-known Scenario 7 played a huge part in it. A scenario which, although I couldn't tell you the specific inner workings of it, surprise, surprise, is an engine mode that lets the driver deploy more power to attack or push. Without that, Norris probably finishes 4th, and we lose all of that drama and excitement, that surprise podium, something we want to see more of. Like I say, that potential knock-on effect could really impact the on-track action during a race, and that would be such a shame. Can we really afford for overtaking or defending, or I suppose battling between drivers, to be made any harder than it is right now? Of course, these are supposed to be the best drivers in the world, and so you might argue that they shouldn't need these extra engine modes to fight. But the reality is that the gulf between some teams is so big that the engine modes could be their best chance to battle with the big teams, but also, and more importantly in the midfield, with the current crop of cars being so tough to follow closely, a little boost of power opens up an opportunity to go for a move that perhaps wouldn't be there without a party mode. People are always complaining that F1 is just a predictable procession. I see it all the time on social media, I see it in the comment section to my videos. And that is something that will not improve by ditching a mode that might close the gap in quali, but probably won't make a shed load of difference to the running order over one lap. If Mercedes are on pole in Spain, they're probably still going to be on pole in Belgium. Yeah, it might not be a second, it might be half a second, but why ban something that probably isn't going to make all that much of a difference during qualifying, but will impact the race negatively? And I'm going to bang this drum again. Lewis Hamilton has made a point of saying, as covered earlier, that this is an attempt to slow Mercedes down, and you know what? Maybe that's true. However, and you'll probably already know where I'm going to go with this one, and I felt the same when Ferrari and Red Bull were on top too, Mercedes are doing an incredible job and they deserve to be exactly where they are. And whilst their dominance might frustrate some people, it's up to the other teams to get their act together and build a car capable of challenging. When you consider the money that Ferrari and Red Bull have and throw at Formula 1, they should be doing a better job. It's up to them to close the gap, not for Mercedes to slow down to help them catch up. And I'm not specifically talking about engine modes at this point because there's not really a lot Red Bull can do with that. That's down to Honda. I'm just speaking in general terms. That said, with engine development frozen and limited options for the teams when it comes to making aero tweaks for 2021, perhaps that's not something other teams are able to work towards in the short term. And maybe that is just it. This ban could well be a short-term fix to a long-term bigger problem that might be solved when the new regulations arrive in 2022. My point being that if the field closes up as F1 bosses hope it will, the modes could be reintroduced in the future. But that is just speculation at the moment and we'll have to wait and see what happens going forward beyond the next few weeks and months. But the fact of the matter is, right now, those modes are set to be banned from the Belgian Grand Prix onwards. So this weekend, the Spanish Grand Prix, in case you're watching this in a few weeks' time, could well be the last time we see them used, for a while at least. But again, I really don't think they are going to make the big difference that many are hoping for. They were, as always, just a few of my thoughts and opinions on the changes to engine modes. I don't know why I say that at the end of my videos, because it's my channel, it's my video, and of course it's my opinion. But anyway, what do you guys think about it all? Do you agree with the decision to ban them, and what impact do you think it will have on Mercedes' qualifying performance? You can, as ever, let me know your thoughts down in the comment section. That is it for this video then, but I will be back tomorrow with the live reaction to the Spanish Grand Prix. But in the meantime, don't forget you can of course follow me over on social media and all of the links you need for that are in the description down below. But as ever, thank you for watching and hopefully I will catch you again in the next one. Bye bye.